by any means, because, well, Office Supply only had one of those, and I actually had to make it longer, and I had to get 2 shorter ones. So like I say, it's not scaled, but everything that we're going to go over is here. You ready? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Rachel's got something for you here. This is a drive around town, crossing the railroad down by the schoolhouse. The whole route. Yeah, this is just going to be the town, not the township area. There's what used to be Morgan School, now the gas stations. Coming up to the business district. Which is a building that has the post office, store, restaurant in it. There's the old supply center. The mill was on the opposite side of the road. That house in the point goes all the way back to the 1800s. The dentist built that one. There's the Okeana Bank and Beauty Bank now. Old CNR body shop. There was a garage right here called Nugent's. It was stuck in that hillside. The next house on the right was George Sims Barber Shop. On the left was the Okeana Food Locker. And the building up there on the right was my dad's garage, Okeana Motors. Coming down Church Street. The big building on the right is the K&P Hall, which also housed a church and an auction barn for a while. The house across the street was the Methodist Church when it moved into Okeana. We're going to hang a right, come down Drewsburg now, or left, I mean.
You didn't show my house.
That was where the blind horse lived.
Yeah, the man with the blind horse.
Yeah.
Coming to the
Did you see my house?
Okeana Methodist Church. The museum's on the left. Community Center. Dr. George's house. That's the point. And where Brownie's store used to be, right here next to this gray house. And we're back to the end of the town. As Yogi would say, you come to a fork in the road, take it. Well, some people do and some don't. So. Well, anyhow, you ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
All right, first stop is Old Morgan School. And when we went down to Ross, to the high school, we found out we were referred to as Morgan Tech. We were Morgan Techers. In 1925, the first Butler County basketball tournament was won by Morgan Tech. Wow. They won it again in '32. Obviously, the elementary wing had some advantages to the flat roof that stuck up from the front. School buses could pull right up to it, let the kids off, and the first and second graders could go right into the classroom. And, that was the day after Halloween night. Yeah. So, oh. Yeah, now this is what it remains of it. The elementary wing is there. They've changed the roof on it. It doesn't have any extra uses right now. But it is a gas station and convenience store. At one time, a fellow in there had a video store in it for a while. And that's pretty much the only source of fuel between Scipio and Ross. Brookville and Ross, I guess. Okay, next one. Here we're at the, what at one time was a, now this is where it gets a little bit fuzzy. A friend of ours, Roy Chestnut, confirmed that Bud Heiler had a garage in the original building there, I have researched through all the Hylers I can find, and they wound up referring me to a Balser who said that he knows it was there in 1956 when he graduated from high school. But he doesn't know how long Bud operated it before or after that. Later, it was Paul's Saddlery and Leather Shop. He made saddles. Oh, hold on. Yes, ma'am.
I can tell you about that. That was First Ohio gas station.
Yes, you're right. I did make note of it.
Actually, my dad and another fellow in Okeana, Robert Ofterhar, years ago.
I actually thought that that's where it was the beginning of it.
They built that, and I'm not sure. I think it was like in '53 it was built.
Yeah.
And we left there in '55. My dad and him broke up as partners, and my dad went to Butler County, on the roadway.
Okay.
And we had 3 rooms in the back there where we lived while we were running the Ohio gas station.
What was the other name?
Please?
You said with Ofterhar, what was the other name?
Mulligan.
Mulligan?
Raymond
Okay.
Mulligan.
Well, neither one of those names came up in anything that I was searching for.
So I'm not sure when it was sold to.
Well, they can't see it from back there.
But they can see up there.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I remember walking home from school and seeing those gas pumps there, but
Yeah.
that's the only thing I could remember about it. But then, the Jenkins family bought it, and to begin with, the far end to the left, you can see the rounded roof on it. That's the original building.
Exactly.
The restaurant has the pitched roof on it. And that's why I put a different color on here. Anyhow, it was at one time, then in the transition, there was a pool room in there. There's been a couple of beauty shops and a couple of several different people operating the store. They added the restaurant onto it, and there's been quite a few people run that restaurant. It was started out Fran's Family Restaurant, Lois and Larry Wyatt's Country Cupboard, Pete Boucher's Country Cupboard. It was Fran's again. Then Molly's Pressure Fried Chicken, Stelo's Country Cupboard, Ron's Place, Raybo's, Mickey and Craig's Country Barrel, and now it's Charlie Herzenberger's Country Barrel. So, that is the gamut on that place. So, next we got next stop would, well, that's okay, Cheryl, we'll go to the mill. We'll go there first. Okay, this was the Okeana feed mill. And these pictures were taken right just a little while after the tornado. And it did make a mess out of that end of town. The building on the upper left is, that's part of the mill.
What year was it?
This was I think April of '69. April or May of '69. 68. 69? 69. Tornadoes. 69. The strange thing is that building was wrecked by the mill was wrecked by a tornado and later burnt down. The building across the road from it had a fire, and then the tornado wrecked it. So, yeah, there's one. That U-Haul trailer was found. Well, that's right across the road. Another one of those was found in a field up near the ballpark on Chapel Road. Yeah, and there's the route that tornado took. Started up at around Alert.
I remember that being on the news, and I didn't live out here then. And I thought, Okeana, wow. And then we found Okeana. Heard about it on the news.
Yeah, that building, right, that's the remains of the Okeana Supply Center right now. At one time, that was a 3-story building. And it had a big, I'm not gonna call it an awning, it was almost like it had a roofed extension to it that you could drive under. And they actually, at one time there was a feed store in there, and Mike Liebrook had a radio and TV repair. There was a grocery that stuck out. Actually, it was in front of the piece that's sticking out there to the side is where they had the grocery. And that was a place, and it still was until it closed up. It was a place that when you've been gone all day and you come back to town, that's where you stop to find out what went on during the day. And there was, I can tell by this, you all know, it was a good place to get hooked on a rumor, so to speak. But there are some true things that happened there. One of them, and I heard this several times, was a couple of fellas, and this won't hurt anybody's feelings, I'm sure. Howard McConnell and Don Petrie were known as big eaters. And one day, one of the many days maybe that they were in there at the same time, Keith Woods was the operating, the kid that was running the cash register. A couple of them, they kind of egged these guys into, well, who could eat the most? So they wound up in an eating contest. And they started out with simple stuff like the bakery rack that had the Dolly Madison pastries and things. They wiped those out, got a couple of bags of potato chips, wiped those out. Keith went to the meat counter and sliced up some lunch meat and cheese, and they cracked open a loaf of bread and they ate sandwiches. Then they got into the ice cream box and ate ice cream until finally Don gave up. And the deal was loser paid. And while Keith was figuring up how much all this was going to cost, Howard looked up at the clock and he said, "Oh, I got to get home. It's time for supper." So Howard's nickname is Hungry. Howard Hungry McConnell. So there was another time, a little later on in life, when it was the supply center. It was 1976. Coming up to the bicentennial, and I don't know if you'll remember, but a lot on television there was a lot of those what they called bicentennial moment special spots in the commercials where they do a little bit of history about the founding of the country and everything. And one Saturday morning there was a crew of kids from the UC drama department were coming out to Bed Park to make one of these bicentennial moments, and they already had their Revolutionary gear on. They had a couple of cannons in the back of a pickup truck, and they stopped at the supply center for directions to the park. And as soon as they left, a lady in the neighborhood saw what was going on, and she run in there to find out what it was. And Gordon Fox, I know a lot of you know him. He was there like he normally was on a Saturday morning, a little retired farmer, school bus driver, yarn spinner. And she comes in and says, "Well, what was all that about?" And he said, "Oh, they're filming a movie out at Bed Park." "Well, what kind of movie?" He said, "Well, it just looks like some kind of a Revolutionary War movie." She said, "Well, who's in it?" And he said, "Well, Paul Newman." He started naming some people off. Well, I didn't really get ahead of myself, but before they stopped, there was a slightly built African-American man stopped in, and he was looking for Tom Coyle. And Tom Coyle lives in he lived at that point house where I said the dentist office was, and he raised coon dogs. And this guy had come out to buy a hunting dog. And while Foxy was telling this lady that Paul Newman and whatever, and he pointed, he said, "That's Sammy Davis Jr. right there." I mean, the hook was set. The beauty shop phone started ringing off the hook. that lady, Betty did more work that day getting, there were a lot of women that got dolled up and went to Bed Park looking for Paul Newman, and they weren't real thrilled when they came back. So you had to beware of what you might hear in that building. Okay, let's go to the next one. There's the feed mill before the tornado and the fire. There's the fire. That was election night, 1973.
How did it start?
Well, there's rumors of how it started.
Okay.
Several of them. And they're all believable. One of them was the possibility that somebody had used a dry cleaning bag to make a hot air balloon that kind of got away. And either way, it didn't take long. There was a couple of things that happened along with that. The supply center that was across the street from it was down to the flat roof because the tornado had taken it off. And Morris had won an election as it was elected as a trustee. And we were at his house with a little bit of a victory party. And I had just had a knee surgery, the first one, and I came home a little from there, and I'd just got in bed, and I noticed the lights flickered from the electric starting to go out. And then about that time, the siren went off. So I had to go find out what was going on, and we're putting the water line through at that time too, from the city water, and all the way down through town, where they had put the water line in, it was ripped up, and it was pretty soft ground where they'd filled in. And I got out of the car, drove down there, and I got out of the car before we got to the stop sign, and I'm going down the sidewalk on crutches, and there was a lot of people right across the road from it standing there watching it, and I tried to go around behind them, and my right crutch went down in one of them ditches, and I had the left one up under my arm, and my fist was almost in the mud, and I couldn't get anybody to turn around and pull me out of there. but the crowd that was still up at Morris's, they came down, and there's a fella sitting back here against the wall, right there next to the window. He just raised his hand. They climbed up on the roof and got a fire hose to keep the place wet down, just to make sure nothing happened there. And he was still holding a ham sandwich that he had at the party. So. Yeah, there you can see the scaffold. They were in the process of painting the mill when this happened. You can kind of see the scaffold that's broke and hanging down from the ropes there. Another story. We had a minister that was concerned that scaffold was going to fall and hurt somebody. So he came down with his 30-06. Rested it on a gas pump and tried to shoot the ropes out. We don't know how many cows he killed in Oxford. But he never knocked the scaffold down either. So, but yeah, the fire took care of it later on. Alrighty. Next stop, Tillery Store. Now this is how as most of us will remember it anyhow. To the left is Charlie Wagner's store, and that store goes back to the 1800s. And Floyd Tillery had some stock that was still in that store when it was new. So there's a later picture of it here to the right. And there were several people in the ones I had for that place. I knew, well, before Tillery's it was Hesser's, and before, trying to think who the heck it was. Oh, several of those people owned both of the stores. The one that wound up being Morgan's store. So anyhow, that was a little bit of everything. You could buy anything from a bicycle to a kite to a pair of work boots, and got a little bit of everything. Fence, obviously, there on the porch. And that is now where the blacktop driveway, or the parking area is next. It's next to what's the bank, was the bank. That's the back side of it toward Dursburg. There's a side view of the bank after the lot was gone with the ATM. And the bank was, we can go to that one now if you want to. There's a picture of the store with the bank next to it, and in the background there is Morgan's store, which was at one time Fegley's store, and then Shelton's store, and then there was a sweet shop, an ice cream shop in there. And after that, then it was Morgan's store. And the last proprietor of Morgan's store is sitting here in the front row, Mary Ann Willie. Hi, Mary Ann. She's been helpful in this. She's done some footwork for me. As critical as I am about my name being spelled correctly, or my family, I had to realize when I was trying to be accurate, I couldn't remember for sure how to spell Liebrook. And I always spelled it L-E-I-B-R-O-O-K. And I called to see if I could get a verification, and the verification thought it was L-I-E. So trying to come up with somebody else, I called Mary Ann. She thought it was L-E-I. A half hour later, she called up and she said, "It is L-E-I. I went over to the cemetery and looked at the headstones."
Well, I live right there.
Well, it wasn't a long walk. She had a dog that had to get out too, I think she said.
We walk there, yeah.
Yeah, so, all right, next is the bank. That was the First National Bank of Okeana. 1909 is when it was established. It was purchased by the Citizens Bank of Hamilton. And then I think it was Key Bank, or Key I think was next, and then Society,
It was First National.
and then now it's LCNB.
Now it's gone.
And now, yes, no, it's not gone, it's still there, it's just it's the beauty bank now.
Well, wasn't it the First National that the Wagners
Yeah.
started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the history that I got into that it doesn't really apply to this, there's been several, starts at history that was relayed to somebody that wrote it down for them, and it was probably from back around, right around about the time that this happened, that the bank was created, because Rose Wagner was the source of the history, and she was quoting it to Mary Ann's mother. And on the other end of town, one of her notes was, "This is where the guy with the blind horse lived."
Oh.
So, don't have any idea who that was, or the horse. So anyhow, the bank is still there, and if you need to get dolled up, Stephanie will take care of you. Right across the alley from that is the store that, like I say, it started, it was Fegley's at that time, but before Fegley's, it was actually one of the Wagners actually owned that store too, and lived behind it, in the house behind it. To the right over here is what is called a downtown view of Okeana. The post office is there on the end part of the building. It was moved down to Jenkins, and the building then, after it was closed as a store, just became a catch-all kind of a place. The fellow that lived there, anything he could find, he brought in and stacked it up someplace. Actually, he had a horse in the basement for a while.
Oh, gosh.
A stolen horse. So,
Was it blind?
I think he thought he borrowed it, really. So. Okay, next. By the way, go back to that if you can, Rachel. This building has really been fixed up by the new owner, and it is available for rent or lease. So if anybody's interested in bringing a business to Okeana, it'd certainly be nice to have you look at that place. They put a lot of effort into it, and it does show what it can be. Again. So. Okay. That's the C&R Body Shop. Now, originally, that building and the office, the piece on the right here is a paint booth that was added on years later, but the barn type building and the office actually belonged with the mill. The office was also a real estate office, but the building was basically for their maintenance of their vehicles and things like that. There was a couple of other things in it over the years, but in 1970, Rich Michelle bought the building and put a body shop in it and ran it up until the early 90s, and then he closed it for his own use and leased it or rented it to Brent Garrison, who lived out in Scipio right there at the corner of 126 and North Dwyer Road. And but it's been just closed and used for storage ever since. So, okay, another picture of it. Next, we're going to, right on the other side, next to that was where Grover Nugent's house was. And on the other side of Grover Nugent's house, there was a concrete block garage that kind of sunk into the hillside. And his son and a guy named Earl Bennett had a garage in it for several years. We got the museum has a calendar or something dated, it was in 1936, that about the era when they were in there. And then that dissolved and moved up the street. What we got next? Barbershop, okay. All right, there is the house where George Sims had barbershop. And it had a side entry there where that window right behind the tree there was actually, that was a door at the time, and the barbershop was right inside. And everybody that's bought that house or lived in it since then, whenever they can find somebody, there's a pattern in the flooring where the barber chair was bolted down.
That's true, our daughter lives there now.
Yeah, well, and everybody tries to figure, what the heck was on that? Did you know that?
Yeah, Mr. Westridge told us.
Did he? Okay. But everybody's had that same curiosity. So, and it, oh, okay, because they made it, some of them even prayed of witchcraft or something like that. So,
Well, that's Riley. Allegedly, that's Riley.
no, it's O'Reilly. Okay.
Witchcraft.
Okay.
Satan.
But there was a ruckus there one day. One Saturday morning, farm mother coming into town dropped her two boys off there to get their hair cut before school started. Well, back in that day, one of the big TV shows was Big Time Wrestling. And one of the real popular wrestlers was a guy named Don Eagle. Had a mohawk. Well, when she came to pick him up, they were sitting on those steps right there, real proud of their new haircuts, and she didn't like it a bit. And apparently there was a loud disagreement happened in the barber shop that morning. But they kept the haircuts. So, that was the Pillion brothers. Did you know them? Did you? Okay.
Really? Look at the tree in there from then.
How it twisted around and kind of fell over.
Yeah, look how big it is.
Yeah. And the weight of it's kind of making it lean to the road, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those two are the same house?
Yeah, that's the same house.
Tree's a little bit bigger on the right,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. The house and the tree are both a little older.
Slightly different age.
Yeah, all right.
Clear to second gear.
Okay, that's-
For Okeana.
That's the building that had the Okeana food locker in it.
Oh.
And in, right around 2002, 2003, so Joe Kelly, boy, we went to school with him, Ross moved out here and he bought it. Well, I got it back up. It was the food locker, and then when it closed up, it was a blacktopping outfit had it for a while. And then when they moved out or let it go, Joe Jenkins bought it. That's Bud Jenkins' brother who did the restaurant and the store down the road. But he was an excavator, bulldozer, backhoe, stuff like that. And then he sold it to Joe Kelly, who, and Joe actually built the second, the apartment, turned the left end of it there into an apartment. And but getting back to when it was a food locker, John and Bob Kimball, or Bob and John Kimball, operated it. Their father and his brother, their uncle, Russell and Harley, they had the Okeana Creamery that was right there, back behind the Okeana Supply Center along the creek. And the Okeana Food Locker was a butcher shop that harvested local products from local farmers. And they had a giant freezer, walk-in freezer, with, you could rent a drawer in the walk-in freezer for that time if you had things, you did your own canning or whatever you did, you wanted to freeze on your own, and you could get meat, buy it there, and there were very few people who had freezers of their own at the time, or if they did, they had a very small one in what the refrigerator was. But that was a very popular thing. And also they had a nice ice cream counter, or a box where you could get an Eskimo pie or a sandwich or a fudgesicle or something like that. And on hot days, us kids used to, some of us kids would go in there and buy an ice cream bar of some type, and then we'd go in the walk-in freezer to eat it. So we double dipped. We got cooled down inside and out. Okay. Yeah, and then Joe passed away in 2002, and it's now, some of the Welsh's gravel. Yes, ma'am.
What year did the locker actually close, do you know?
Any help? I'm going to say around 85, 84, somewhere early 80s. And I'm saying that because I know what I was doing at the time Joe was there.
It might have been earlier than that, because I remember running into John Kimball when I was working for the Zimmermans in the 70s.
Yeah.
And John would have, if he was working for the waterworks by then, it might have closed to like right at 70 mark, 71 or something. Just as a calculated guess.
That's 70, that early?
I believe I'm right, but
You know, you're right, excuse me. He is right. And the reason I know that is I bought Bob's house, and they had left and gone to Florida.
you got it.
See, I told you it was hearsay and a poor memory. Right.
What?
I want to help. Everybody's arm is going to start falling off, so I'm going to hold it for a while.
Oh,
Well, I
okay.
can hold it if I sit, I
Yeah,
can't stand
but
it.
then I'm blocking these guys out.
And this is my dad's garage, Okeana Motors. And we did some strange things with some of those records. I was moving the safe from the old post office to the new one, with that one there. We went out to Scipio one day to pull a cow out of a well. And that was an, the poor gal, she was down in the well about 8 feet with her head up this way and her rump up this way. And the guy who worked for the farmer went down in, got a rope around her, and we drug her up out of there and pulled it off the hole, and it was just where she could scrub on the ground, and she was running before we cut the rope. And then a cowboy in Texas could have rode that cow and went across the field. So, okay, there's another view of it.
Did you?
By the way, back up here if you can, just a second. That was the last wrecker. I built that thing, and anyhow, I sold the equipment off of it later on. My daughter gave me a picture for Christmas that was like a canvas stretched over a wood frame, and where it had been parked, it looks like it's coming out of the jungle. And I said, where did you get that picture? She said, there's pictures of that truck all over the internet. So actually, I was out in the lot one day when somebody pulled in and got out and asked if he could take a picture of it. And they were on vacation. I said, yeah, go ahead. And I even said that he said, this is one of the stops we wanted to make because they saw that picture. So if the township wants me to do anything about that junk truck, I'm going to tell them it's a tourist attraction.
Got it.
About there? Hi, Mom. Oh, heck. Well, now we're coming down Church Street and there, Church Lane, excuse me. And that's the KFP Hall on the right. And Knights of Pythias. And when it closed up, it became an auction barn. And then after that, there was a church that was in it for a while.
Baptist church met there for a while.
Yeah, Baptist church.
Run across the street to Smith.
Yeah, the little house across the right across the road from it. You know, you're all free to take this trip in your car and make it real. So.
By the way, for open house, the next 2 open houses, this will be on display down at the museum. So if you don't get a real good look today, I'll have it down there for that.
Okay, that's all right. There's not a lot of excitement on Church. That's another view of it. It is a nice building, though. Fella has it now as a, well, he passed away too. He was a painter, and he had a lot of his, and wallpaper, he had a lot of those type of things he housed in there. Okay. Next, there's the Okeana Methodist Church, the new one. And to the left is how it looked when it was originally built, and it looks pretty much the same, doesn't it? We've had several ministers in my lifetime. When I was a little guy, the one of them that was there had a son that my mom said, well, I was like 4, and she said I kept yelling at this guy to come over and play with me. And she said he was in high school. I don't remember it. But John Dale Kimball told me that he and the minister's son were working on scenery for a school play at Morgan School. And they were on the stage with the stage curtains pulled, and he said this guy was kind of an irritation. He didn't really like him that much, but something happened that they got into a little bit of a scuffle. And they was chasing each other. He was chasing this kid around. And the school principal had come down just to see how they were doing. And all of you that remember what that gym was like, there's on each side of the stage there's a stairway. And the principal was just starting up the stairway when John chased this guy off the stair, and he jumped down the stairs and jumped right on the principal. Well, he got on him for horseplay, told him to be in the office in the morning. So John went, he said, I had to go home and tell my dad I was gonna have to go to the office. He said, I knew he wasn't gonna like that. So he said, the next day we went to the office. I'm trying to think, was there a principal named Lunsford or something like that? Anyhow, they went to the office. And the principal said, what do you think we ought to do about what happened yesterday? And he said, Roger reached down in his pants and pulled a pistol out and he slammed it down and said, I don't think we ought to do anything. And the principal said, well, by God, don't let it happen again. He said, now I got to go home and tell my dad that Roger pulled a pistol on the principal. So, that's one. Yeah, okay. That's the Walt Westridge Community Center right here we're coming to. On the left it was as it was built, and on the right they bricked it. And it really made a real nice building out of it. A good facility. Well, Walt was a great guy. He sure was. And so was Marty Luce, the plaque down there in the middle. Some real good people. There's a Thursday afternoon or Thursday all day kind of senior day. There's been some hot and heavy township meetings in there. A little bit of everything, so, yep. Oh, and there was that is right here, and that, well, I really didn't explain my grid to you yet. I will finish the tour and then I'll tell you about the grid. Okay. All right, you can go to the next one. Across the road, that's the old firehouse there on the left. And that pitched roof you see behind it, that is the township house and the museum. This is there it is there, nice with all the flowers I've been watering.
Yes.
Thank you.
For Midge. Can you back that up for just a second? There you go. That is Homer Davis. Everybody knew him as Hop. And that was one of our new, the fire department didn't buy fire equipment, they bought trucks they could afford and made fire equipment. And that is Vern Trageser Ford. He always treated them right, and they were able to buy a few pieces of new rolling stock and convert them to stuff they needed. But we've got a lot of strange, unique nicknames in our area. And a few years ago I started writing them down. And I've got a whole bunch of them, and I've been trying to track out how the origination of these nicknames. And everybody, you ask who Hop is, they know it was him, but who's Homer Davis, they wouldn't. That's how strong the nickname was. Well, the last day he was in Okeana, they had a sale at his house. His wife and daughter his daughter lived in Georgia, and his wife had gone down there primarily for her health, and he was going to join him down there. And as he was leaving, he always brought Dad a bunch of White Owl cigar boxes to use for small parts and stuff. He came in with a stack of those things for me, and we were talking, and I could tell he was getting a little emotional. And I happened to think, I said, how did you get that nickname? Well, they had a group of friends that they put on plays in other towns. You know, they had, what would you call that, an acting troupe or something like that? Yeah. Well, Hop, his job was scenery, and they were putting a play on down at a building there right next to the traffic light in Miamitown, and he went down for the play. And on the one of the cast members was ill and couldn't make the trip. And when he got that on the marquee, it gave the name of the play and by this Okeana group, and it said featuring Homer Davis as Hop Sing the Chinaman. He had no idea he was going to be in the play. But that was how Hop got his, that's where Hop came from. So,
What was your nickname?
I can't say.
That's for his Grover Nugent was in that group, I think.
Yeah, Grover Nugent was one of them, yeah. So, well, I did have unique,
I can imagine.
no, but I gotta tell this one though. There was a boy in town, I grew up playing ball with his dad, and he grew up playing ball with me. And well, they just called me Frank T. Okay? Now we're going back into the 70s. And here, just recently before he passed away, the phone rang and I answered it. He said, Frank T. And I said, hi, John. He said, I've always wanted to ask you something. I said, what's that? He said, what's the T for in Frank T? And I said, Tompkins? He said, why'd they call you that? You know who I'm talking about, don't you? John Lloyd. It's Marianne's nephew. So, believe it too, don't you?
I do now.
Okay. Oh, now right next to the museum, right here, this little pink, these pink squares are houses that no longer exist. So I'll explain that to you. I'll go over that whole thing before you leave your chair. But this little house that no longer exists, there was an old gal named, really nice old lady named Lizzie Hanley. And we used to play football in her backyard on the way home from school. She's just a great lady. And one of our new ministers, it was his first church, I believe, his first day when the collection plate came in, and there were notes, a couple of notes in there about people in the congregation that couldn't attend church due to illness or whatever reason, and maybe he could pay a visit. So next Monday, after he was doing things before he ate lunch, he thought, well, I can run over and see this lady at least and have that task taken care of. So he went over, knocked on the door, and she called him in, and he went in. Well, her bedroom was immediately off to the right of that entry door, and she was laying in bed, kind of propped up. And he went in, walked, introduced himself, and sat down on the chair next to her. And it just started, and she fell asleep. Well, he didn't know how long if this would go on he didn't know what to do really. So he just sat there for a minute. He picked up a magazine and was thumbing through it, and she woke up in a while, and he reintroduced himself, and they laughed about her falling asleep, and he said, no, don't worry about it. He said, I was reading a magazine. He said, my stomach was ground a little bit. He said, I ate some of your peanuts there. He said, I'll come back and see you in a couple of days, and I'll bring you a bag of peanuts. And she said, no, you don't have to do that, Reverend. I can't eat them. I don't have any teeth. I just sucked the chocolate off of them. So,
Just going down the street.
well, I better not tell you the other one. You think I should?
Huh?
Well, do you want to or not?
Go with
Yeah.
Huh?
You can't wait to do it, just do it.
Well, the new minister was supposed to be here to tell one that happened to her.
She is.
Where is she?
right there.
Oh,
Right here.
well, why don't you step up here and tell us what happened with you?
It wasn't my fault alone. I was with someone.
Mary Ann.
No.
This time it was Ann Coleman. Since I came to Okeana's Methodist Church, I've been walking with Ann. I normally only walked about 5 or 2 miles, and even then, sometimes my husband had to push me. But Ann got me walking 5, and we were walking out at Governor Bebb's. Well, we were checking our mileage on my phone, and we got to the street right there at, and I pulled my phone out, and I have that iPhone, and it has a satellite on it. Back when the storm was hitting Florida, I downloaded that satellite because I had family in Florida, and I wanted to be able to check on them when the storm was coming through down there. And so I seen the phone, it went to the satellite, because there's not much internet out here in Okeana, and every time I go down in a dip, I lose calls. But anyway, I put my phone back in my pocket, and Ann and I turned around and we continued to walk. And it was just a few minutes later, and here come an ambulance, blaring loud, driving way past us on the road, and we started talking about the day before when we had seen a raccoon, right? And it was sick. And there were campers down there at the lower end of Governor Bebb. And I started praying. I thought one of the kids that was down there may have messed with one of them, and here the parents called the ambulance in. And Ann and I just continued to walk. And the next thing I know, here comes the fire truck. Now, your fire chief, he was very polite. When he got to us, at least he turned the siren off and we weren't going deaf. And then he went on past us. And we started noticing they just kept traveling around down there. We're still walking. And it's okay, but all of a sudden, here come a Butler County Sheriff. And he pulls up to us and he happened to say, "Your name wouldn't be Trumbull, would it?" I was mortified. Apparently, they were looking for a woman on fire. I'm on fire for the Lord, but not on fire. But Ann and I were talking, we were sweating bullets. And we were talking about how hot it was that day, and my phone must have picked that up. And he said, "Well, give me a minute, I got to call off the helicopter." And then he let me call my husband, who just calmly said, "Okay, you're fine," and hung up.
Well, now hold on. I got a call from dispatch. Said, "Hi, this is Butler County Sheriff. Do you know Magdalene?" I said, "Yeah, it's my wife. Almost 45 years." He says, "Well, don't panic. But we've got a fire distress call from her phone. Do you know where she is?" I said, "Yeah, she's with Ann Coleman. They were at Governor Bebb walking." She goes, "Well, do you have Ann's number?" And I said, "Well, hold on. I'll get the directory," and I give it to her. And I said, "I'm coming." She said, "No, don't come. This happens all the time." So I stayed here waiting for
That's why he was calm, but I asked him about it when I got home, let me tell you. Anyway, it wasn't done. Here come another Butler County Sheriff. So now I'm wishing there's like a tree I can hide behind, all of that, because he's joking with us about being on fire, and I said, "I'm never carrying my phone again." He's telling me I should carry my phone. And then here comes this gator with a gentleman on it from Metro Park. They had him out in the woods looking for us.
Oh my God.
So your fire department did a great job, the Butler County Sheriff did a great job, and I'm mortified.
You clean that up someday.
But very thankful that you respond like that. That was good to know. Yeah.
Well, now do you believe my story? All right, here is brownies, is what we ever called it when we were kids. Leotis Brown. He was a township, he was clerk for the township. He had the old gas pumps out in front that you had to pump the gas up into the globe and then drain it down into the car. That store actually sat on that blacktop driveway pad right there, and Rachel has superimposed it in there. That's just about how it looked. And that was one of those stores like you would probably find in a city neighborhood, where you go in and the canned goods are stacked all the way to the roof. And right inside the door to the left, he had a soda, a pop, cool. It was, the bottles stood up and they were in recirculating cold water. And he had a meat counter. He had hardware in the back, which was limited to nuts, bolts, screws, hinges, stovepipe, stuff like that. But I know that on Saturday evening, my dad and a couple other of the business people in town and a couple of trustees would always have a little community meeting there in the back of the store. And my sister and I, we knew about that. And so we would walk over to the garage so we could ride down there with him and the wrecker. And while they were having their meeting, we were counting the malted milk balls that was left, because we knew that Dad was going to get whatever was left in that box would be our treat for the night. And then we used to get to pick a candy bar too. And then while we would be watching Midwestern Hayride, Lawrence Welk, Dad would take his knife and he'd cut our candy bars up into little squares, and we'd have a little candy bar party. That was Saturday night. So.
Lotus Brown's name's out here in the hallway, being a clerk. He was like a clerk for 30 years. So if you can actually look up what years he was a clerk out here in the hallway.
Yeah. So, that, I believe, is the end of the tour. Except for right here's the scenery when the road was still dirt. And where that white fence on the left is there, that's the point right here where the dentist office is. It has changed a little bit. You know, when a gas pedal replaced the buggy whip is when it all changed. And several other things kind of kicked it into a higher gear later on, but that was the start of it. So, one more thing I want to do here. Thank you, Rachel. That was a great good job of that.
Like I said, this will be on display in the museum.
The orange striped cards are business locations that no longer exist. The building's gone. And other coincidental, like the firehouse and so on like that. The solid blue with the X are places that the building's still there, but there's nothing going on. But the solid blue with nut, like the Beauty Bank still exists, the Okeana Outpost, that's the store. But what I realized while I was doing it is that the Country Barrel, the restaurant, was one of the few structure. Well, we've had 4 houses and 1 building built in the town since 1940. And all of the pink squares are homes that no longer exist. There's 44 houses in the town. There are 20 of them that have 1 person in them. And another 6 that have only 2. So, it's dwindled.
When did the train depot go?
The train depot?
And where was it?
Well, the train depot was up here behind the mill, but it went away, gee,
Use the mic.
80.
They need you to use the mic again.
Oh, the depot was up here behind the feed mill, but it went away before before it changed from steam to diesel, and that was in 47. So yeah, it was gone
I think
there.
it was sometime after World War II to 1950, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Like I say, we talked about this, that when I got to digging into history and what's going on, there's just way too much to do in a little while in one set. So we're thinking about doing a prequel to it. Going back a little bit farther the next time he has an open date, and anybody that would like to do it.
We already got our come to do this.
So,
Hey Frank,
yes,
it's not right in town, but remember when Kemp's had the grocery store down where Kayada Saloon is?
yeah.
We had that also.
Yeah, well, actually, Mary, yeah, but that where the Kayada Saloon is down here, Lee Kemp had a garage there that he had like a wholesale grocery barn there. But that evolved out of him when one of the Wagners, or what was Tillery's store, they had a mobile store. And he drove the truck for it and went out to the country, you know, farm to farm and stuff like that, and actually sold groceries on the road.
Then after he gave up the truck route, he tried it down there.
Yeah, and after he did that, he went to...
Coyote.
So yeah, there's several unique businesses in the township area right around town that, you know, deserve some mention, but we just wanted to concentrate on the village itself, because there's so many people here that go through it every night, have no idea what once was. Yes, sir, Paul.
What was the name of it before it was Okeana, and when was it changed?
It was Tariff, and it was 1892 or something like that.
Well, no, it was before that, I think.
Okay.
But I hate to say right now.
1828.
It didn't stay that too long.
Good finger there, Rachel.
Okay, you got a question over here?
Yes.
You talked about Morgan store. There was a Morgan store in Scipio where they...
Tad Morgan and Fred Morgan were brothers.
Owned both of them.
Oh,
Tad
really?
Morgan.
But his brother Fred and his
Brother
wife.
Fred ran the one down in Okeana. Fred, the year the Reds won the, what was it, 61, when the Reds. Fred had a cold, and he was a great Reds fan.
First game of the World Series.
And he went home to lay down a couple hours so he could watch the game. And Fred was a terrible smoker. And his bed caught on fire, and our fire department had to carry him out. He didn't make it.
Oh, I did want to show, like I say, my gridlock here, my grid. There's one house right here. It's got a pink square, a white dot, which all the white dots are houses that exist. The pink ones are the ones that's gone, and the green ones are the new ones. And there's a pink one, gone, a white one, house, a new one. That is where I grew up. We were living upstairs of a house on Druersburg in 47, and the parsonage burnt down. We didn't have a fire department. My dad, we weren't from this area. My dad was from Price Hill. His father was a city of Cincinnati fireman. But anyhow, after the fire of the parsonage, the emphasis was put on creating a volunteer fire department, and Dad had a lot to do with that. But Mom and Dad bought the property from the church where the parsonage burnt down. And we moved into the garage from the parsonage. And Dad added a little block part onto it to make a kitchen, so we had a little bit to live in. And he did that a couple of different times, made it bigger. Well, then when Mom passed away, so that's the dot is the parsonage gone. The dot is the house being built. Well, then after my mom passed away, my sister and her husband tore the old house down and built a new one. So we got one gone, one built, one new. So that's just my insight. Frank on the
And when the parsonage was on fire, the Oddfellows, or the KFP, was meeting, and they came down and formed a bucket brigade to fight the fire. And the guy that saved the church records out of the attic was a guy named Peanut Spagley. They put a board across, he walked across the board and carried the records out. According to
He was the only one thin enough in town to walk across the board.
And Dorothy Jeffries, her husband wrote that in a letter, so that's how I got the facts on that one.
John Fagley's father. Well, any other questions? Yes, sir. Pat.
Years ago, you told me that that wrecker, the famous wrecker that brings all the tourism to Okeana,
Yeah.
was once Fritz's
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
I guess for delivering or picking up electrical supplies?
No, he had a water tank on it, and he used to come down to the well in Okeana, and he was hauling water back and forth with his stock, and then when the city water went through, he didn't need it anymore. That was a truck that Western Home Center, or one of them had it, they hauled roof trusses on it. It was almost like a school bus chassis, and we took 8 feet out of the frame to shorten it up. And by the way, here's a story. Pat is, he's been here a while, but he was coming to breakfast with us down in Okeana on Friday mornings on occasion. And one morning he was in there and he says, "What is Liebrock Hill?" And we told him it was Liebrook Hill, and that's where you live, at the top of Liebrook's Hill. We've got landmarks around here that we got Liebrook's Hill. DeArmond's Hill is the hill out here that goes down toward Okeana. We've got landmarks that a lot of people aren't aware of, and it began to be a problem with the volunteer fire department for dispatching when we got, you got radio contact and stuff like that. When we dispatched to Harry Heiler's house, we had people had no idea who Harry Heiler. We had to start using addresses.
It's also the reverse. When the county start calling us out and giving us numbers, what the hell number are you giving me?
Yeah.
And then his dad would get on the radio and said, "It's over by Harry Heiler's house." Well, I knew where that was at. Get the fire truck there.
Yeah, we had a fire one night down at well, you go to Macedonia Church and turn south on California Road, the big hill you go down is Sawmills Hill. Well, the first farm on the right was Nixon's had it for a while, and then McSwain's had it later on. But in between, there was a family that lived there. They had a circus act. They had lions. And it was a cold, snowy night. We got a call for a barn fire there. And I was driving. Dad was, at that time, he couldn't respond. He was dealing with his medical problems. And I was driving the pumper, the GMC, and when I got to Macedonia Church and hit the brakes, it didn't want to turn because it was pretty slick. And I happened to think, I got on the radio and I said, "Dad," I said, "Do you know if this is the barn that's got the animals in it?" He said, "I'll find out." And before he come back, I heard the county dispatcher call. I said, "Morgan, what kind of animals you talking about?"
Lions.
And Dad said, "I'll call you." So he didn't tell him on the radio. It turned out they were there, but they weren't in that barn. But we got to go in and see them while we were there. And have you ever heard a lion purr? It's pretty damn loud.
We could hear it at our house. We could hear it. We could hear the lions.
Hear you? Really well. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
You know where that picture was taken at?
The picture of the T-shirt?
No.
On the hillside across the railroad, kind of up behind,
Behind the tracks there, if you look down.
kind of about where the house, where
Where the Nugent house was.
Yeah.
There's a little stone building there now. If you go out in there, it would have been right in that stretch there someplace.
We need to find that spot and kind of line it up and get another picture.
I imagine shrubs and trees, you'd
Yeah.
have to climb up pretty high to get to that now.
Don Ann's house, that's about where that's at.
Yeah, pretty close spot. Okay, any other questions for Frankie? One
Yes,
more.
ma'am.
Why is it called Okeana? Where'd you get the name?
Indian Princess is the legend. Some the Miami people argue with us on that study Indians, but our local stories are a lot better. Chief Coyote was living down here, and that's how they got Coyote Creek, and his daughter was Okeana, and they called her an Indian Princess, which I didn't know the Indians really had royalty, but and that's how Okeana came about. Another thing, it could have been the settlers in the area, because if you take a look at Okeana, it's Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Okeana. So there's all kind of stories of that stuff, but like I said, I prefer going by the old legends and all the other stuff. Yeah.
Go ahead, Shirley.
I was just a teenager living around here, and Frankie, this is just wonderful. In fact, I've almost come to tears different times today. They've been so great. Anyway, I remember when Reverend Bryce Nichols came out here. He was very afflicted with arthritis, he and Bella.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, when they were coming out here, they said, well, we wondered where in the world was Okina. So I never will forget him.
He's the first.
This has been great.
He's the first minister I could remember as a kid, because I've been there forever. But that was preschool. I think she might have taught at school, and then he ended up at Lebanon at the Goodwill store.
Yeah.
You reminded me of a story. It involves a church, kind of. Well, it does. But the county fair, the church had a booth, a food booth, that they actually, it was the only real place in the fair you could sit down and get something to eat. And we used to load up the tables and the stove and everything out of the church and haul it up there. And Shirley's dad was one of the guys that used Bill Fongdong used his truck, and Dave Nienover. And what do you call them, harvest tables?
Yeah, harvest tables.
Well, they're about 10 feet long.
Yeah, those big wood ones that you
Yeah.
can see.
Anyhow,
they're harvest tables.
We stood those things up on end on the back of these farm trucks, and then we took them to the fairgrounds. Well, me and Bobby Updike would sit up on top of the tables going in. And when we got to Hamilton, we'd have to swing the traffic lights out of the way to get through. Yeah, we'd get down, look back, and all the traffic lights in Hamilton swinging back and forth. That was a good time.
Well, you had to be careful too. If you volunteered to help us move, we took some big stoves up there. And my dad would get on one end, and Dave Nienover would get on the other, and don't get in the middle, because when they went into that narrow door, there was no room for anybody else, and them guys could lift. Because Tony, he knows what we're talking about. We finally got smart enough after about 25 years, and we had wheels on it that you could kind of push them. Because they built frames. But yeah, got one over there.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I always remember the story. My mom was Maureen Johnson, and she worked at the old Morgan School.
Yeah.
And there were always the stories about the outhouse on top of the elementary wing there. And I don't remember it myself, but I remember the stories and seeing pictures and things like that. So could you talk just a moment about that? I wonder who did that.
Frankie has to take the fifth.
I have no idea. If I hadn't have seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it. Did you see the picture?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean,
Halloween was always an exciting time. Matter of fact, I heard it said by a couple people this past week, it would have been terrible to grow up now because everybody's got their corn picked. Back in those days, the corn was still out in the field, so they threw corn in cars and stuff. And he says, now there would be no fun at all. There's no corn.
Now, just to add a little bit to this, the old timers used to put a buggy and a farm wagon on top of the big building. And the trick to that, I understand, was to climb the building with a rope and then pull it up a piece at a time and put it back together on the roof.
And they did that to a wagon once down Morgan School.
There was a wagon on the wing. J.B. Little pushed it off. Just poured all the pieces.
Yeah, it was always easier to get them down.
Raise your hand if you were involved in those incidents.
Nobody in this group was big involved.
Oh, yeah.
We were never able to find the persons.
We always blamed it on John Jesse.
Well, J.C. would be a good one. J.C. was good because one time Jim Powell was chasing him around town and a couple of his buddies, and they got his house. So they ran in, picked up a deck of cards, sat around the table, threw the cards around like they was playing cards all night. Jim stopped by and saw Christine out on the porch. She says, "They're in there, Jim. Take them away." So out by his own mom.
The sign that you've got that's in front of the church, the little clever little play on words thing, that our Sundays are better than flubs, and so on. I see those. Is there a book of those things? Or are you guys just that creative?
Sometimes.
All right, well, the reason I say is when that sign was first put there, it was just for meetings and service times and stuff like that. And one of our new ministers, young guy, put a message in there and said, bell ringers wanted. Now this goes back 40, 50 years anyhow. So he was in the church playing the piano just to entertain himself and collect his thoughts for what he was going to be talking about the next week. And when he got done and turned around, there was a man standing behind him. And he said, can I help you? And he said, yeah, I'm here about a bell ringer job. I thought, oh my God. Right. And he happened to notice this guy had 2 broken arms. They were both in casts, in slings.
This is a joke.
And it gave him an out. And he said, sir, I don't think you'd be able to do this. And he said, why not? And he said, they took him out in the vestibule where the rope comes down out of the ceiling. He said, you'd have to be able to pull that rope. And he said, well, I'm here. Can I try? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And so he tried pinching it on his chin. He couldn't do it. He tried wrapping his leg around. He couldn't do it. He could not do it. And he said, well, can I look at the bell? And he said, okay. Well, he found a ladder. They pushed that thing out of the way, and they got up there, and the rope goes up through pulleys and everything to get to the steeple, and there's a little stairway there, and they climbed up, and he walked around the bell looking at it, and all of a sudden he ducked under it, and he just started slamming his head into the bell. And it was chiming just like Sunday morning. And the life squad, or the fire department, had a run the night before, and there was a couple of firemen just checking tires and things, make sure equipment was okay and didn't pick up any nails or whatever. But he flailed his head around under that bell, and he come out, and he could knock himself loose. He fell right through the lures on the thing, bounced off the roof, and landed in the garage in the lawn right next to that sign. Well, the people across the street come running over, and Melvin Woods and his wife next day, they came over. And they're attending to him, playing there in the yard, and then the minister comes running out the front door, and one of them looked and said, who is this? And he said, I don't know his name, but his face rings a bell.
You know what? It's funny that happened. It happened to the same guy, a friend of mine has some Providence travel. He tells the same joke every time we go on a trip.
He stole one from me.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. Any other questions for Frank? Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks to the crowd. As you can tell, if we can get Frankie to explore another part of Morgan, we might do that someday. And we